Okay, here we're going to use an array of objects. Just like in the previous video, we had 3 students and you have to declare every one of them. That's not the best way to do it. So let's look and see. So array of objects. That's really what this method. So let me create first a class. And last time I created in the main program, the same page here, it gets too long. So I'll just make a separate one, new class. And I'm going to call this class, what should we call this class? Let's call it student. I don't know. I'm going to call this class student. I'll make it different than the other one. And notice automatically comes out public. That's good. Here we go, public class. And that's why when we did the other one, we didn't have the word class here, and it was given like something is not right. So if I don't put public class, if I go student, it's assumed to be public class. Now I'm going to use private values here just to show you. So this is private, so only this class knows what these values are. Private, int, and student ID, ID. You have an ID number. Private, string, student has a name. And I also want to get the date the file was created. And I don't want to type it myself. So private. So I'm going to use date, but to use the date, and I want the machine to create it for me, I'm going to say Java dot, go to utility, util, give the variable the name date, that's what's going to be. Get the date and put it in a variable called date created. So date created will come automatically from the computer. I don't have to type it in. That's the name of that location, date created, but it comes from Java util, and the machine will grab the date, whatever today's date is, and the time when you run the program. What time did you run the program? Now here I'm going to create a constructor. If you read the notes I put on the website, a constructor will have the same name as the class. So public, student, same name. And it's like a method. It's expecting things from me. int, we'll go the first one, s name or number, student number. What else is going to have? Is going to have string, student name, s name. I'm only sending 2 things to it. I'm not sending 3. And curly bracket to begin the constructor, curly bracket to close it. I want the ID to be the student name. Whatever I put in the student name to go into the ID. Oh, I use lowercase d, I think, yep. And I want it, there we go. Student num, type mismatch here will be, that's what the error will be. Student num, yep, because that's matching types, that's why you get the error. And you want the name, what did we call the name? Was capital N. Name equals whatever an S name. So whatever name you have, you put when you call this one, whatever the number is going to go into that student ID, and the name, the S name is going to go into the name. The date itself, I want to have the program actually get that. That's capital S. So date created. equals new Java dot util dot date. So take the date from the computer, that includes the month, the day, the year, and the time, and put it in the allocation date. And that's my constructor. That's it. So I'll do column methods here to print date and print, So method to get ID. Get ID. So let's see what get ID. Public. Static. Again, if you don't put it, get ID. Curly brackets. Parentheses first, then the curly bracket to open it, curly bracket to close it. I'm going to call this get ID, lowercase, and return ID. Public, you know what? I forgot to tell them what type. I'm returning a value. int, integer value. Again, I could have just took the word public out completely. That'll be fine. So public int get ID. That'll get the ID. Another method here, public string, that will return the name of the student. Get name. Curly bracket, or just return name. And that's done. And the date, you want to print the date. Public java.util dot date get date created, curly bracket to open it, curly bracket to close it, java.util, missing an L. So here return date created, semicolon. So I got my class and I got my 3 methods in it right now to do all the stuff I wanted to do. Save it. Now let's go to the main program here. So we're going to use a scanner to read the values from the keyboard. Here we go. So import. Let me just quickly describe here. Array of objects. So that's what this one. I like it in the middle there. Here we go, array of objects. That's why with this pro. So now import java.util.scanner. So let's begin scanner. I'm going to call it input device ID equal new scanner system.in, the usual. And maybe I'm going to have the program ask the user how many students. Oh, here we go. int size of the class equals id dot next integer. So we're going to read the size there and tell me how many. But if you're going to do that, maybe you want to let the user know that's what you're doing. Sys without the next line, enter the class size. So this way we can create an array just big enough to hold the class, and we're going to read the value. If you want to validate the value, you can use a do statement. Again, you're always going to think about writing a good program. Oh, I should take in that line actually and put it inside that do statement. Cut. Take this one now, cut. And go right there, Command V. And repeat this while what? While size is less than 1, because you don't have a class, that's an integer value. Or maybe you want to put a maximum class size greater than. So just to make sure, let's say the biggest class that you have there is at your school is 100 students. So if it's more than 100, nope, can't be. We can ask for that number. We can have the programmer ask the user, what is the maximum class size at your school? And use that one's class size. While size is less than 1 or size more than 100, just keep all of this. int size. I know what the error there, because I'm reading that it doesn't like it here. It says, what happens if you don't go through the loop? So let's go out there, int size, and give it initially equals any number you want to, like 0. It doesn't really matter what number you put in, because you're going to be changing that number inside that loop automatically. Doesn't matter what do you put in there now. So now let's create the array. Create the array. So to create the array, so here's how we're going to do it. We called our class, remember we called the class student. So here we go, student. Let's give the array a name. We'll call it class. This is my class. Let's say my class is Java. Java. It is an array. Equals new student, and its size, whatever the size we specified for the Java class. So now Java is an array, will be size 5, size 20, size 70. It's an array, but each line of that array, each line is going to have all this information in it. The student ID, the name, and the date created, each one of these lines. So I can set up a loop here to read the values. So here we go. This is going to load the array for int count equals to 0, count less than, we know the size, or I can say the array.length, the size, and count plus plus. Each time you go through it, increment the count. So what do you want to do here? Curly bracket to begin this, curly bracket to close it. Sys I wanted to say enter student plus, now the count is going to be 0, so I'm not going to say student 0. That sounds stupid there, basically. So I'll say count plus 1. So the first student is student number 1. So count plus 1. It'll be in location 0 or row 0. Plus space ID number so maybe I'll do, instead of right line, right, so it'll be on the same line. And now when you see that, the machine is waiting, like you expect the person to enter the value. So let's read that value. Where are we going to put the value? I want to put the value into the array. So that's the ID number for the first person. So can I just go, the array is called account. Here I see missing a U. Can I put the value directly there? Count, not count, Java. Did I use lowercase, uppercase? Where is it? Where's my Java array? I use capital. Java, location count. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I created a constructor. I forgot. Instead of going dot here, I don't want to do dot here, because I have a constructor which is right here, is going to assign the values for me. See that constructor right there? Is going to assign the values for me. So let me use that constructor. I forgot what my plan was. Okay. So let's take here an integer value, int, n equals id. That's coming. I use capital D, I think, for that. For my input device, I use, you know what? This is actually confusing. Let's use input here for the scanner. So different than ID, I forgot. Input dot next integer. I'm going to leave something out because I want to see if you remember this or not. I'm going to leave a line, empty space here. So I got to come back and fix it. And now let's ask for the student name here instead of number. Let's repeat this. We'll change a few things in it. Enter student number 1 name here instead of ID number. And let nm, which is a string here, not gonna be string, and if capital S here, if it's a string, then you have to use what? Next line. And when you finish with these, let me assign the values to my array using my constructor. Again, my constructor name was student. Here we go. So I'm going to use this one to take these two numbers and give them to the first student. So Java count is 0 the first time, is going to equal to new, and the constructor, which is student, and I'm going to that constructor expects me to send two things. The first one is the ID number, which is I use the letter N, and the second one is the name of the student. So once we see that, once Java sees this line, it takes the student number and the name, and it goes to this guy. It puts the number in SNAME and the name here, and it says assign them to these variables. There's one little problem here. I'm going to run it and show you what the problem is. We have an error somewhere. Let's see where the error. ID, I think I use lowercase. Oh, that's the input device. I changed it to input now. My mistake. Yep. Enter the class size. Let's make it just 2 simple for now. Enter student number 1 ID number. I should do, or ID number for student 1. Let's see, it's fine. That's good. Hit enter. And it says enter student 1 name, but then went enter student 2 ID number. So it's not really waiting for me to type in the name. If I go type in the name, I get a syntax error. Excuse me. And the reason is that little space I left out. When you type a student ID number and you hit enter, the enter key actually went as the name. So to release that enter key, you need to say input dot next line and that will take that into hate when it does that. Next line, and that will take that enter key and basically just grabs it. So when you get to the name, you can actually type the name. Now that should work. I just want to make sure you remember that part from before. Class size of 3. I'll make it 2 actually, because I'm only gonna. Here's the first one, enter student ID number. Oh, that's an integer value. It's gonna give me syntax error if I don't do that. Enter a name. Next one, enter a name. And it took both names and numbers. Now, let's print the result. So, display the class, the Java class. So, who are the people in the Java class? So, I'll put a header on it, syso. And maybe I'll do student ID. That's the student ID, the first one you're going to be seeing. Maybe some spaces. Student name, some spaces, date created, print that header, enter that, syso. I got a count here just to make sure I know where they are, where each one starts. Oh, double quotation. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I want the student name to fit right there. That's location 17. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37. 37, that's 20 characters later. Okay. Let's do this. And now let's set up a loop to print. I can steal this loop. Well, actually, I'm just trying simple, just only one line I'm trying to steal, so it's not worth it. For int equals to 0, k is less than size, k plus plus. Oh. Curly bracket to begin, curly bracket to close it. Print with format, sys-o. ID number, usually about 8-9 digits long. Percent, double quotation first. Percent. I wanted to, it was 17 spots for student name begins at the 17th spot. So let me put here a line on the left side. Let's make it, I don't know, 14 digits long. That's an integer value. 15, 16. Then the 17th one, that's where the student name comes in. Student name. So here we go, percent. A line on the left, 17 digits long. That's a string. So that's 17. I need it to be 20. 1, 2, 3. Then the date comes in here. So if I don't put the date here, that's where automatically is going to be. So I don't have to do that. So here we go. Do this. And now let's tell them what you want to print, comma. Don't worry about the date. I want to print Java dot k. That's my counter. Dot get ID. Get ID, that's a method, comma. I want Java k dot get name. Write these two. When you finish writing these two, your cursor is still sitting at the end, at the beginning of the date here, right there. That's where the cursor is sitting. So sys-o. Now I want to do Java square bracket k dot get date created. Notice I use print line because after you print the date, I want you to go to the next line, so we'll show you what everything looks like. And I think I'm good with this. I think that's the end of it. We'll find out shortly. Let's save this. Let's run it. Enter class size. If I put 0, it doesn't let me leave. If I put 200, it doesn't let me leave. I'm going to put 3 students. Now it's going to move forward. Enter student 1 ID number. Here we go. Enter the name of student 1. Enter student 2 ID number. Enter the name of student 2. Enter the ID number for student 3. Enter the name of student 3. Now, when I finish with that, it should print everything for me, who are the people in the Java class. Here's the student ID number, student name. And notice was created Sunday, May 10th at 9:14 a.m. Eastern Time, the year 2020. I miscounted. I should have had it pushed one more space here, but I can live with it. And that's the end of this one.